Okay, so Leonard went up to check with Dora May and just make sure that we had talked this morning before we started the interview, or not this morning, this afternoon, and she didn't know if she wanted to share her story or not. But
oh yeah, it's fine. Let's head on up.
All right. So did you guys build your house?
Actually, the shell was already built.
Okay.
We finished out the inside, and so yeah, this is
beautiful.
We have 2 children, and it's about the right size for us for what we need. But yes, Dora, she's over here doing the ironing.
Do you go by Dora or Dora May?
Either way works.
Okay.
I answer to either way. It works.
So you still very much live the Amish lifestyle, with a few exceptions.
Yeah.
Oh, is that a new stove that you put in?
Yes, here's the stove that we've been using for years, and it's like got the kerosene wick on it, and it might be surprising to some people, but that there's actually these are actually used nowadays. So you just tip this back and then crank the burner thing for the wick, and then you light it, and you kind of have to watch if it's smoking or the color of the flame, and then carefully put this back, and you just adjust the flame to how you want it. And then of course the coffee pot, you just set on top and just...
Oh, that's like a camping coffee pot.
Yes. Mm-hmm, like
that's awesome.
It actually works really, really well.
I am a coffee connoisseur, so.
Okay, sure. And then if you want to turn these off, it's actually simple. You just turn it left, like counterclockwise.
Okay.
And then it'll die off. It's
off
still flaming a little bit, but it'll die off.
That's cool.
But you want to be careful with these stoves that you don't leave them alone,
Sure.
like unattended.
Yeah.
Because sometimes and you put your fuel is in the back here.
Oh.
So here's your jug. You unscrew this and put your fuel in, and it costs like $7 a gallon. And then you thread that back on. It's got this thing here. It feeds.
A valve, yeah.
Yes. And then you just put this in like that, and they actually work really good. They've been, I don't know what year they made these, but they've been around for many, many years, and we've used this one a lot. Now, we did actually upgrade last week.
It's very clean still.
Yes, it's hardly used, and it does require a little bit of electricity. So I do have a battery with an inverter, but we've actually been using that in the store. I need to get another one.
But that's just for the ignition, right? You can still light it with a lighter? Okay.
Well, it does, for the baking
if you have a
part,
clock.
this is actually a convection oven.
Oh, okay.
So it's got a fan on the inside.
Okay.
And to help with, rotating the air,
Yep.
so you have better, like you're making bread. I think she's really going to like this. She actually likes it already, really good. I don't have the battery hooked up now, but we have the battery.
Okay.
And if it's hooked up, this lights up. And so it's off grid. Like, we're not hooked up with the power line, but we want to put some solar panels up.
Yeah.
To where it's more, where it's, we want to get some other appliances too, like a solar powered refrigerator.
Yeah,
right
I've
now,
seen those.
what we have is...
It's kind of an RV thing. So if you can get those at an RV store.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Yes. So she's heating up the iron right now, and when she's doing her ironing, this is actually, it's just more convenient than using the kerosene stove, and
so there's a sense of freedom that you've never had before.
Exactly. Yes.
Just on practical things too.
Yes. So 7 weeks ago, we went through a very tough time period. But now we're actually healing from that, and now it's like, this isn't so bad after all.
Yeah.
So no, we're really, and it's not that material things that doesn't bring happiness.
Yeah.
But it's just like this. This is much more practical than just because it's piped in, and it doesn't cost nearly as much.
I remember my grandma. She just used to say, "Well, why on earth would you go back to how we used to do it?" So before some of these conveniences. she's like, why would you do that? Because you save so much time, you know. So that
Yes, exactly.
yeah, so that's kind of, you know, you're kind of in the same position.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. Of course, here's my Bible. I don't know if you noticed this. This is one that I've actually had it. Oh, I've used it for the last, especially the last 2 years. I started it like it's all highlighted and underlined, and you know, it's just my personal Bible I use and that's where I found, you know, those references I came across.
So the interview I did with Ray, I had several comments on, well, I didn't know the Amish don't read the Bible, and I've mentioned that's not true for everybody. And I mean, maybe from your perspective, you can give a little bit of light on it. I know, like, for me personally, growing up in the group that I grew up in, I didn't read it unless I had to. Like, if I was preparing to share something or whatever.
Sure.
And so it's, and that's because I didn't have the foundation on Christ. It was a work-based type of religion that I was a part of. And so I just didn't read it because I had no desire to. Sure. It wasn't a thing that I had a desire for. But you can say, I just want to clear up a bunch of people, because a bunch of people have asked that question on the other interview that I did with Ray. You've had access to Bibles and you read it, but go ahead and share whatever you want to share.
So, like, I used to just, I would hear, obviously you go to church and you hear verses, you hear the two allotted scriptures that are going to be read that day, and it's in German. So I felt most comfortable in reading German because English was kind of like, oh, that's kind of the world's way. I mean, it's like, I almost felt more comfortable with German because that's what I was taught, that like for devotions, like in the morning, we would read it in German, and I can understand German actually, reasonably well. I mean,
that's not what you speak though. You speak
it's a Pennsylvania Dutch dialect. It's what we have like when there's no outsiders around. I mean, just like amongst ourselves. It has a lot of English words, but it also has some German. Some are homemade, and even in the dialect, we don't all speak the same. I mean, we've got some differences in what.
Well, it's kind of like Spanish. You go to different countries; they have their own kind of little versions of that.
Sure, but I used to we would. Out of habit, we would read like one chapter every day. Like usually in the morning, we'd read one chapter out of the Bible, and there's nothing wrong with that. But then once I started actually digging in and like pursuing it, I didn't just stop with one chapter, and just because if you just do one chapter a day, it'll be a long time till you get back to that one again. So I would more like browse through and like maybe there was one I came across, and then I would like kind of like reread that one, and just so it's actually been very interesting to discover that the Word is actually alive. It's not just a book it's actually real, and it's actually been brought to life. Like I got rebaptized last summer.
Okay.
And the reason I did was
outside the Amish church.
Yes.
Okay.
I didn't really. I mean, I wasn't. It's not that like I was going around telling people, because I didn't. I felt like the questions that get asked in our baptisms. The first question is fine. It asks if we believe that Jesus Christ is, the Son of God, and I'm totally fine with that. But then there's the questions keep getting more and more like related to ordnung, like the church and ordnung. So then you're basically kind of like baptized into the ordnung. And so then I started feeling like I would just like to be baptized just with nothing except just strictly for the sake of Jesus. Like, because I came to, it was August 4th is when the lights went on. I realized that, okay, so if I believe that I am saved through the blood of Jesus, and then I am. But if I don't believe, and I'm like, if I have to follow this ordnung or follow this or that, like man-made rules in order to be saved, that's not actually believing. So the lights just went on. It was like, boom,
That's awesome.
August 4th of last fall. So shortly after that, I asked someone, an outsider, to actually baptize me at a lake.
Yeah.
And
Well, you can share that. That was your taxi driver, right?
yes, exactly. Yes, and it was one of those things that I didn't want to like do any publicity because it would have at that point. I would have been, expelled very, very fast because that is serious, serious business to the Amish if you get rebaptized. The name Anabaptist means rebaptize. So, you would think rebaptized would be okay. And, I'm not saying that everybody needs to, not at all. But in my situation, I felt like I had been far enough off from really knowing what it means even when I got baptized first.
How old were you when you were baptized
18.
in the 18?
Yes.
Okay. So that's very similar to how I grew up too. I was baptized at like 13 or 14. And it meant nothing. It was a step that we just did. So it was expected. And actually I was pretty proud about it because I was so young, I thought, or whatever. So my wife and I were rebaptized. We actually renewed our vows and then were rebaptized on the same day. It was a wonderful day.
Sure.
And because we, at that time, I was a believer. And so it meant something different.
Sure. And to me, it was like doing that. I knew that if it gets found out, then I would get shunned unless I make a confession. But I don't know. I just had a surge of courage, I guess, because I have never regretted it. But like I said, it's not that I think everybody has to go out and be rebaptized.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
For me, I feel like I really should because it was so. When I got baptized, I had no idea about actually the saving grace of Jesus.
Yeah,
and so I just wanted to.
It wasn't a believer's baptism.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the way I felt about me. But I don't criticize anybody if they don't get rebaptized. That's totally fine.
Yeah.
I'm just in my situation. That's what I wanted. Here's our wood stove that we use like through the winter, especially.
That's a very beautiful stove.
And you can put fairly large chunks of wood in, and then we've been using that like to heat our our tea kettle, to heat all our hot water. We heat it on here, but we do want to install a propane water heater.
Okay.
Most communities are okay with that. Now
Really?
that wasn't okay with Windsor. That's we're not allowed to have a protein.
So you do have running water, so that's okay, but not a heater.
Exactly.
Okay.
Like a propane water heater was not allowed. But that is actually, we did run piping to actually hook one up.
So one thing that we had talked about, do you mind if we sit down?
No, I think that'd be a good idea.
One thing we had talked about the other day when we visited, and you had brought up to us about that sign, the God bless you sign that you put out there. And you had mentioned that, did you put those before or after you were shunned?
That was before.
Okay. So tell them what was it your bishop said or a minister?
Yes. So we were shunned, like when they did the council with the church to decide that we need to be shunned, and they actually, it was because we didn't want to shun our neighbor. That was actually the reason. Now, I did have a phone at the time.
Okay.
But nobody knew about it. It was just one of those things. I wasn't trying to do wrong, and I'm not saying that was the right thing to do, but that's what I did. And I don't justify that. I just that's the way I did.
But that's how the Amish are gonna watch this video, right? On their secret phones?
Yes, exactly. So I don't want to encourage someone to, we want to be careful of what we do that people don't know about.
Yeah, you don't want to offend others.
Or, if it came to the point where I actually personally told all the girls that worked at our store, I told them, I released it myself. Okay. Because there comes a point to where I'm a hypocrite. It can come to that point at a certain point where I just feel like, okay, I'm just going to I'm going to tell my father-in-law and mother-in-law. I'm going to tell all the girls that work at the store. I'm going to release it myself, and I did.
About your phone, having a phone.
Exactly.
Okay.
Because I just felt like I want to be. I'll just be open about it. I have no problem with a phone. A phone is actually. I use it as a tool to to do business with. Obviously, I've watched a lot of YouTube videos that are upbuilding, and of course, it's like anything else. Like my grandfather committed suicide. Well, he used a rifle. Well, it wasn't the rifle's fault. It was the person using the rifle. So that is where I actually see a difference in how you use it.
It's a tool, not a weapon.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so when I did I actually exposed, told him I had that, and I would just, I'll just be open about it. Okay, I have no problem with the phone. I think we need them. I mean, nowadays we really need, because I was having to go all the way over to, all the way, where I was going to.
Well, I can't imagine doing business with. So how far is the phone shack from your?
It's close to a half mile.
Okay, so every phone call you'd have to make, yeah, it'd be hard.
Well, I would group my calls together, like have a long list.
But still, it's a lot easier just to pick up your phone and.
If the person doesn't answer the phone, and then you've got to make another trip. So it was very inconvenient. After I exposed about the phones, that wasn't until after they had done their counsel that they're going to shun us.
Okay.
So at the point when they decided to shun us, the phone was not in the picture. Of course, a vehicle was not. It was actually because of not shunning our neighbor. And that's what I think is kind of, we need to consider, for me, we had already lost our help before we got the vehicle.
Because they were all Amish.
Yes.
And they since you were shunned, yep.
Yes.
So the signs, the God bless you signs, what did they say, or what did they tell you when they saw those?
Well, so they, after they had already done the counsel to shun us, and then they found out about a phone, and of course some other things. Like I had shortened my beard.
Okay. So it's too short for standards?
Yes.
Okay.
Very much so. And but I've had people comment on me that, well, you look younger than you did. And so I think
take some of the gray hairs out.
Yes.
Right? I've got a few growing in there and makes me look pretty old.
But then, so they had a list of 14 different things that I would need to make a confession for. Or, well, one of those was my signs. They said I would have to take the signs down. I wouldn't necessarily have to make a confession for having put them up, unless I would refuse to take them down. But so then I asked, why would I need to take those down? And well, the bishop said that I need to just do like everybody else. And then later I asked one of the other ministers, so what is his viewpoint? Like, why did they make the decision, like as a group effort, that those signs need to come down? And he said it's hard to explain, but it's like shines too bright. And he said we need to let our light shine and not make it shine.
It's crazy. I don't even know, I don't even have words for that. Yeah, it's crazy that they would say that.
Like, to me, it was actually encouraging, because obviously we've got a lot of, I would say probably the majority of the community is shaking their heads, and they actually would have, it's in 1 Corinthians 5, where Paul was talking about this man that had his father's wife about turning him over to Satan for the destruction of the flesh. So when they shun someone or excommunicate, they will read that verse.
So that's
Like-
the verse they use?
They will read that verse out loud in front of the whole congregation. And so they did that. I'm sure they did that for me and Dora. I mean, that's standard procedure.
But you weren't there.
No, I wasn't there, so I didn't hear it, but I'm sure they did. Because I had actually talked with the bishop before they did the shunning, and I asked him, if that is actually proper to do that. And well, he felt it is, because we're being disobedient. So he felt he actually will need to do that, and which they can do that, and it's not, that doesn't actually impact us, but just the idea that, like, I was trying to save them, I don't want that to be on their record, to where they have, like, actually spoken that out to the church about us. And so then, because of that, sometimes I feel a lot of pressure. I don't as much now as I did to start with. It was just like this pressure, because we've got all these people that are like shaking their heads, and they've actually announced publicly in church that they've turned us over to Satan for the destruction of the flesh. Well, that doesn't feel good to know that the community-wide consensus is that, they actually think that they've, in fact, my cousin told me that, Satan had his fingers wrapped around me. And I told him, God bless you. And he said, I'm not in a position to be wishing him a blessing. So before we ended that conversation, before I left, I told him, well, I wish him God's blessings in his mini barn business and in his spiritual life. And he said, I'm not worried about that. So, it's painful to have, people that were friends, just plain turn against you. And now they think we're going to hell. They honestly do. They've actually basically announced it in church.
So they're told to basically fear you because
we have
you're
some
so bad
a strange
or whatever.
belief.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, and then one really quick thing, I'm not sure if we talked about this when you were talking about when we were in the store with the sorghum, but the other day you had brought up about how he was allowed to bring sorghum to that mill in the dark.
Oh, yes, exactly. Thanks for bringing that up. Yes. So that's interesting because he was actually told he can take it up to the sorghum mill in the dark. Like the minister told him that. Because
they were shunned, right?
Yes.
The mill owners were shunned.
Yes.
And so they weren't allowed to use the mill.
The neighbor that raised the cane was not supposed to be bringing any cane up to the mill because it was owned and run by someone that was shunned.
Okay, and this is the person that you wouldn't shun, and ultimately got you shunned.
Exactly.
That's a little confusing, but
then it's very interesting on that part because I actually think sometimes we need to fact check, like just check something out. We don't have to be fearful. God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and a sound mind. So it was actually yesterday that I went up to the place where they make the jams, and I had a request if I could buy jams. Well, he declined it, and I don't mean this in a disrespectful way, but he would be shunned if he wouldn't, obviously.
Sure.
And so
so he really didn't have a choice.
Exactly. But I want to give him the opportunity.
Yeah.
Like I'll buy local if I can. But if I can't, we'll just have to either buy from someone else or we'll just have to work around that. But so I told him, I was kind of relating that to him why, because he was not very happy about me come driving in the driveway with my van. So he was like he was kind of, I think he felt like I'm definitely a sinner because I came driving in with my new minivan. So then
did he know yet, or?
Well, he came out on the porch, and I came. Yeah.
No, I mean prior to yesterday.
Oh, he did. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because I go check the cows, and
Sure.
we go through the community, and I park it up here where they can see it.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Things like that travel pretty fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't not every family around here, we don't have, each individual family has a phone. But it gets, things like that get spread
We
probably faster than a phone.
we talked about the Amish Facebook. They invented it.
Well, so I actually I was telling the jam man, why I felt like I couldn't shun my neighbor. And I was relating how they had told him that he can't drive his own buggy to church if the 5 children that are members of the church that have been baptized, if they are on the buggy, they have to drive. Him and his wife cannot drive.
Okay, so their kids were not shunned.
Exactly.
They were members of the church because
Yes.
they were old enough, and they could not ride in the same buggy as their parents.
If he is driving.
If he's driving.
If the parents are driving. The parents could sit in the back and take a ride with the children driving, but not have them drive.
Wow.
So then they started, the parents drove the little buggy and the children drove the big buggy. Because obviously, dad and mom didn't want to sit in the back seat.
It's like it's humiliating them, isn't it?
Because as the husband,
Yeah,
the
I think
man of the
that's
house,
I think that's the whole thing, is just like we were talking about earlier, like, it to be reinstated back into the church after someone is excommunicated, they need to follow the ministers to their little separate room 3 times. I think, I think that's just another,
Well, if they make it bad enough when you leave, it's a way to control you from leaving, right? Or the hope is that.
yes, and
Yes,
some
certainly.
communities are not as strict as
Yes,
Windsor. We happen to
Okay.
be blooming in a community that is like very, very strict. And they hold the Meitung or the shunning, they hold that, they'll hold that the rest of our life. It's permanent. So for me and her, we could even move to a different Amish community, but that Amish community is also required to hold the shunning on us. Like my parents live 350 miles away at Arthur, Illinois, and they are required to not eat with us at the same table because we're Amish. So anybody that's Amish, it doesn't matter if you're Schwarzentrooper Amish or the regular Amish. When they would get to church, to start with, they had said that to start with, when the sorghum man came to church, they would shake his hand. They wouldn't give him the holy kiss. Everybody else gives the holy kiss, but even the 2-year-old boys, because everybody makes a big circle in front of the barn, all the boys and men, and so even just the little toddlers, even on the man's riding around in his arm, while he goes around makes his circle. Can I have some water? And so when they make the circle, you shake hands with everybody.
Even the little kids.
Even the little ones that are being held by their dad. Announced publicly in church, the bishop did, that it's no longer necessary to shake his hand. Just if it's convenient and you happen to be walking past him, before church service starts, you're welcome to shake his hand and then tell him, God come to your help. Which is not nice. Would I want a bunch of people be telling me that God come to your help? Well, that's like taking on the air of, so I'm in serious need of help.
Yeah.
And so it's humiliating.
Yeah.
But so some
Thank
of
you.
them would shake hands with him. It was optional. So now it's mandatory that you shake everybody else's hand, including the little toddlers. But a grown man, in his 50s, he's optional. You can if it's convenient, but it's not that you have to. And then for lunch, so in some situations, they will have the person that is shunned can eat separate. Like after church, we have our noon meal with peanut butter sandwiches and pickled beets and things. So then they'll set up a separate table like in the basement, and then whoever is shunned can eat separate because they're not allowed to eat at the same table as the main group of people. And so they wanted to do that, just eat at the like down in the basement or somewhere. But they said that they have to go home to eat. They can't even just eat out on the buggy.
Wow. Help me understand this, because it's a different culture than I'm used to. If you're shunned, there's people that are shunned that still go to church in hopes that they'll become unshunned sometime? Or what would be the reason why a shunned Amish person would keep going to church?
Okay, in hopes of things being worked out where he can come back and be at peace with the church.
So one of the purpose of shunning would be that you would come back. Do you think that's the main goal?
I think it started out probably started out good, with good intentions, but good intentions sometimes can go bad.
Sure.
Like it can be abused, and I think that's what's happening here.
Okay.
Like this is a human being with a soul and feelings, and he's being treated in a way that me as a storekeeper, I mean, it's repulsive, because if I would treat my customers that way, I just don't want to. I mean, I don't treat my customers that way. I try to be nice to my customers, and I think that was the way Jesus did. Like, now he did have a problem with the Pharisees, with them, forcing all these rules on people, and but the common people, he actually had so much love and compassion. It's like, I mean, I'm not even touching the surface on it. It's like, that's what he was about, love and compassion. And here, I'm needing to see my fellow man being treated like in ways that it's like repulsive to me. I mean, I can't support that. So he would, then they started just going home for lunch, and the children would stay, with the big buggy, and Dad and Mom would go home and just eat at their own place then.
Wow.
But they couldn't just stay and then visit with in the afternoon. Like church service lasts from 9:00 a.m. is when it starts inside. You start singing. It's the second song. It takes 20 minutes to sing that song, and we always sing that song every church service. Every Amish church service in the United States will sing. It's what they call it's like the Loblied, or English be like the love song, I think you would call it. But it lasts 20 minutes, and it's 5 minutes per verse, and there's 7 lines per verse. So it's like very, very slow.
Yeah.
But it lasts 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And we'll sing that song like every time we have church service.
Wow.
But then it goes, and it can vary from community to community. A lot of times it'll go from 9 to 11:30 or 12:30. It depends if they have to have like a council afterwards. But then we'll have our noon meal afterwards, and then usually after lunch, and then we'll everybody kind of stays around to do some visiting, like some afternoon visiting, like talking about the weather or the new things whatever's going on. Just
the fellowship,
news, fellowship. And it's actually, I always enjoyed it.
Sure.
That was actually one thing. I was usually, when after church, I was typically one of the last ones to leave. I just enjoyed it. Sunday afternoon, you've got everybody's around. You can kind of go around and kind of ask. I mean, just start a conversation with someone and just visit. That is something that I do miss. I actually do miss that. It was just something I enjoyed.
You had brought up Jesus correcting the Pharisees. Has the word or the term Pharisee, has that changed in your mind since you've been shunned?
Well, so I don't want to be judgmental, about it. I mean, I don't want to judge anybody, but I personally think we have to be very careful that we do not make the same mistakes as the Pharisees. They were very carnal-minded. They looked at things, like they looked at people's clothes. They looked at the washing of the hands. And there's nothing wrong with washing of the hands, but they made that almost like an idol.
A show, yeah.
Yes, a lot of things were like for show, and so that's some of the things that I see here. There, I don't want to be judgmental about it. I think it's a very great danger that we don't become like them.
I know for myself in the group that I grew up in, I'll call myself a Pharisee. I wasn't trying to get you to do that. I'm just the rules that don't matter, right? When we stick to those appearance type things, and you point them out on others. I was so quick to point out everybody else's fault because that's just kind of how I was raised. Like we judge everything based on appearances, and so, it's pretty crazy to look back and just think of how, I guess, nasty I was personally to some people. But
I'm sure you've read like Matthew 15. Well, of course you have, but that's one thing that really stands out is Jesus was very hard on the Pharisees. Mm-hmm. Matthew 15 and Matthew 23. He's just like he's calling them vipers and
brood of vipers.
And I'm not sure is it in there that he talks about if our righteousness does not exceed the righteousness of the scribes and Pharisees, we shall in no wise enter the kingdom of God. So I think it's serious. We need to take a look at, okay, how does this culture, what's considered as acceptable in this culture, is that a Pharisee spirit? I think we need to really compare that with Scripture. Mm-hmm. on what problem did Jesus have with the Pharisees? It was a lot of it had to do with they were very teaching for doctrines the commandments of men, like the commandments, like their own commandments, mm-hmm. like they added to God's commandments.
Yep.
And held that as law.
Yeah, and it's amazing, and you had mentioned that it must exceed the Pharisees. Well, somebody who appears to be righteous, how that seems very difficult to do, but thank goodness Jesus' righteousness is imputed to us, and that's how we can exceed that. Not because of what we do, not because of the rules that we follow, but because of what Christ has done.
Mm-hmm. Now, so we had a situation where you actually had to, there was a problem with your pleats. They were like, was it 1 inch? Your folds.
So on your dress.
Mm-hmm. They're supposed to be like, and that varies, from community to community. But around here, they're supposed to be 1 inch apart. And apparently mine were further apart than that. And several years ago, the deacon came by to let us know about that, and that I need to promise to change it back to 1 inch. And it just happened that every Amish family that has room or is like kind of like the age bracket to they take turns to hold church services at in their own homes.
Mm-hmm.
And it just so happened that he came by. So I had these two quite major projects going on right at the same time, and then I got the message that I need to change this, and it was the services we had or we're going to have is the kind of like the preparatory services just before communion.
Okay.
So that was. He came the second to last week, and I told him, okay, I'll do it, but I just can't do it this week or next week. It will have to wait until after our services here at the house. So fast forward to Saturday morning, just before our next day's services, he again showed up with another ministers. And just repeated basically everything that we talked about the first visit. And again, I told him I was starting to get, the last day before church, the next day is very, very busy because you're wrapping up, you're cleaning, you're mopping the floors, you're just, yeah.
And for people who don't know, about how many people come, like in your community?
I'd say like in one district, probably maybe 75.
Okay. So you have to host 75 people.
Yeah, more or less. So yeah, the last day is a very busy day. So he came, along with another fellow minister came by, and we just went through the whole thing. So, and again, I told him I will, but I'm sorry, but I just can't do it today yet. And it will just have to wait till next week. And so we left it at that, and I told him I want to. Inside of me, I wasn't sure how necessary it was, but because I kind of thought it was, just we're getting quite down to small details.
So how do you think they found out that your pleats were over an inch?
I struggled with the same question. I wasn't sure. Did someone have a measuring tape like in the Sunday services? I don't know. Yeah. But anyway, then the next day, like the preparatory service before communion, we start at 9 o'clock in the morning, and then the children leave around 2. And then that's when just the members of the church stay, and the ministers go over like the rules of the do's and don'ts of of this community. So, and that can last till 4:30 or 5 o'clock. But right around noon, the deacon came to my husband and told him that him and the guy that was with him the day before, they would like to speak with my husband and I about my dresses. And I was floored. There was a mixture of emotions that went through me. A floored,
like disbelief?
Yeah, shocked, because we had already discussed this twice. But okay, we gathered together, and what a surprise. It was just the same thing over again. But this time, he really emphasized that if I do not promise to change this, which I already had promised twice before, if I don't promise to change these, I cannot partake in communion in 2 weeks. Because, like for having communion, they need to have everybody needs to come to an agreement, in order to partake in communion. Okay.
So there's no disagreements before communion?
Yes. Okay. So it needs to be, everybody needs to come to one accord, I guess. And I was, like I said, I was shocked. And I told him, I'll do it. But I just couldn't these last 2 weeks. And I hope you understand. I pleaded for them to understand. But it wasn't just a 12, 24 word conversation. It was, just kind of like drilling it into me that I really, really need to do this. And I kept telling them, I will, and I will do it. But anyway.
Wow. And that's all over, let's say, a quarter inch.
Yes, and when my collars are too short. I mean, they're not wide enough. They're not in the ordinal, you know. And I told Leonard that, well, you know, afterwards that the girls and ladies dress collars can be 1/2 inch to 1 inch, and I've always made them in, you know, like a 5/8. And he came the first time, and he came twice after that, like once a week. I mean, it was 3 times, and after the third time, I was maybe I shouldn't have become aggravated, but I was just a wee bit aggravated because we also have a copy of our ordinance letter.
Okay.
And in there it's just as plain as it can be. It states that, you know, between 1/2 to 1 inch.
So would it have been appropriate to pull out a ruler and show him that it was within that? Or no, you just didn't do that?
Well, I guess not. Probably because I didn't have a ruler with me at the time. But anyway, so after the third time, I told Leonard, okay, I'm finished with this. Why don't we go and talk with our bishop and his wife? And I specifically want his wife with the conversation because, you know.
Well, that makes sense.
Yes, you know, ladies, they're used to sewing and anyway. And I just wanted her with us. And when we got there, we sat down and I started explaining what the reason we're here, and that he has showed up 3 times already, you know, just coming after in my 5/8 inch collar. And but I didn't mention my collar as 5/8 inches wide. I just said my collar. So the bishop asked me, so what is the width of your collar? And I told him, well, I've been sewing my own dresses since 16 years old. And I have always made them 5/8 inches. 5/8 inch wide. Mm-hmm. And just without missing a beat. I mean, I was so surprised. Without missing a beat, he said, well, then you're okay. And I was just like, well, thank you.
Wow.
I really appreciated that. I really did.
Yeah. So the camera overheated when you were finishing up your story on the pleats on your dress. Mm-hmm. So how did that end up? Oh, well, I think it's reaching it, yeah. I changed, the next week I was done cleaning, and so I had time to, start changing these pleats, and I discovered that some of the pleats I'm changing 1/16 of an inch, and the others, they were anywhere from 1/8 to 1/4, between 1/8 inch to 1/4 over 1 inch, what they should have been. So yeah, that was interesting. So yeah. I'm not a sewer, but I can't imagine the amount of work to undo every single one of those. There was about 3 dresses. 3 out of I'm not sure how many dresses I had to redo, but I specifically remember 3 of them that I always had to, they were just 1 inch apart, so I always had my 6-inch ruler measuring it, because I wanted it to be 1 inch, if that's how it was supposed to be. And I'd pin the pleats and, just pin everything together so it doesn't slip while I sew it. And then when I had sewed it,
I measured again, and some of the pleats had slipped. Like, especially if a sewing machine doesn't have a walking foot on the right where the needle is. Anything like the bottom layer of fabric will just it's just the way it does if you don't have a walking foot.
To most people, you wouldn't be able to see that. Like, it's just a product of, like you said, that happened. It maybe slipped a little bit. But they chose to pick that to bring that to your attention and make a big deal about it. Mm-hmm. That's crazy.
And several, like I said, several of the dresses I measured, I pinned, I sewed, measured again, and they were just a little bit over an inch. So I picked the seam apart, measured, pinned, and sewed again. And it's the same thing happened. Yeah, there were some of my dresses I had to redo 3 times because it just it didn't. I guess the machine wasn't cooperating with the rules but I finally got it. After three tries. Wow. Then what was really interesting. It was probably around 2 months later. I had this one dress that I wore for Sundays. I did not change those pleats because I kind of decided I think I'll quit wearing that for Sunday and just wear it like for every day or anything else.
Okay.
So I told myself I'll not change those pleats. And then several months later, I kind of forgot. Well, I did forget that I hadn't changed those pleats, and I wore it that day to church. And the very next week, before the next Sunday, the same guy, the deacon came by and told me that I wore a dress that the pleats were over an inch. And this is a true happening. I mean, I am not exaggerating. It happened.
So they were watching for that, though. I mean, they were just looking. It
kind of seemed like that, yeah. Because there were so many ladies around me. The same community with pleats over an inch.
Yeah.
Actually, I mentioned that to the deacon, not just to justify, myself, but I was just like, whoa, why did we just single 1 or 2 out of 100 plus women and girls? Mm-hmm. And because I said it's all over the community, in all 4 districts, I see these pleats over an inch apart. And he said, he kind of just brush it off. And he said, we're working on it. So,
wow.
But since this happened in 2019, and in the years after that, I didn't see any changes. But that's beside the point.
So I have 2 questions, and I'll try to remember them both. When they continued to come back and bring this up over and over in different things, the collar, the pleats, the whatever else they were bringing up, what did that do to your spirit? Like, how does that make you feel?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a good question. You get to the point where you don't feel very good towards them, and that's not good. Because, Jesus' commandment, he said a new commandment he gives to love one another. And it was hard for me. I needed to remind myself, I need to forgive them. I need to love them. I need I need to follow the Bible in all this, even if, things like this get thrown at me. Mm-hmm. But yes, it was.
It's got to wear on you, though.
It was a struggle.
Yeah.
I'm human. It was a struggle.
Yeah. And then the other question I had, I think, for both you guys, and I'm trying to remember exactly what it... Oh, how is your relationship with Nathan now after you guys have been shunned?
That's a good question. I think
Does he... Well, first of all, does he still go to church?
he does.
And you guys do not?
Exactly.
Okay. So that plays a part.
Well, okay, so how would I describe that? I appreciate Nathan very much. And, I love all these people. I mean, these are the people we grew up with, and we know
your family.
We know them inside and out, and it's like, we know kind of who likes to do what, or yes. And like for Nathan, he's a deep thinker.
Okay.
And I think it is I know it's very hard on it's been very hard on him and his wife and their 3 daughters because they can't work in our store anymore.
Yeah.
And they're actually I know the daughters are they're grieving because they really enjoyed their job here. But they can't, they're not supposed to work here or they would get shunned. So it's been very hard on them. There's a lot of tears been shed about this whole situation. But, we kind of took a different approach than what they did. We were just kind of like, well, we've seen all we need to see. We're ready to just, step out in faith and just kind of go from here. For them, they are still struggling with, turning loose.
So they ultimately wouldn't mind joining the church again, you think?
Well, yeah, they did partake in communion this past spring.
Okay.
So, yeah. And he was, he was excommunicated for 14 months. So about 3 months before communion, him and his wife were taken back in as members.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Explain really quick, difference between excommunication and shunning.
It's actually the same thing. I usually call it shunning because there's a lot of people that will excommunicate, but shunning that's the part that I can't go along with. Okay. So excommunication is basically just, you're no longer you're no longer in communication with us. You're like excommunicated, but it's the shunning. Like, we're going to shun you. Like, if you look
Which
up
is a cutoff.
Yes.
Complete cutoff.
Look up the word shun, in the dictionary. It's like shun. Okay, so it's basically kind of like a divorce. Like, we don't believe in divorce. Well, the Amish are very strong on not divorce. Well, it's basically, because I looked up those words in a dictionary. Divorce and shun. And they're both basically the same thing. So it's a united agreement. We're going to shun this one person. We're going to single that person out and we're going to shun them, not do any business with them. And, we're going to treat them. It's discrimination.
It blows my mind the amount of, I don't know, nitpicking is the right word. I don't know. I don't want to be disrespectful either. Sure. But just that you have to go through so much stress. And like, Leonard, you were talking about the stress that we have affects our health earlier. And you have to go through so much stress over, these little things that ultimately don't matter.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's hard to fathom. But I'm very thankful for what God has done in your lives, and hopefully that, it's something you'll have to deal with a lot, but hopefully some of that stress is going away.
It is. Yeah. For me, definitely. And, for both of us.
Yeah, it comes and goes.
Yeah.
It hasn't bothered me now, talking about it. Like I said, it comes and goes.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But, like the relationship we have with it's very good. Actually, what was it? 2 weeks ago, him and his wife came on a Sunday afternoon, and we visited with each other for several hours. So yeah,
Good.
he's a very deep thinker, and he's not, you know, he sees a lot of things happening, you know, conversations, and just action. I mean, he's close to 60 years old, and it's basically all we've ever known.
Yeah.
So it's hard. It can be hard to make the break.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I think they'll get there.
Do you hope he watches this video?
Well, I wouldn't mind if he would.
I know for myself, I can tell, you know, obviously there could be some bitterness. I went through that. I'm not saying that for you, but it's natural. Like, I don't know if bitterness is the right word, but just, you know, being hurt and everything.
Very much. Actually, I apologize. In February, I apologized to 4 of our district's ministers and another elderly guy from one of the other districts. I apologized to 5 of them for harboring bitterness, anger, and unforgiveness toward them in these last 2 years, ever since, you know, all this started, and even before, you know, because I realized that, yes, that is, I realized that was a part of me. And I don't want to carry that with me.
Mm-hmm.
It's baggage.
Yeah.
And it's, after all, it's between me and God is what counts.
Amen.
It never was, like, I have this poem. I had it hanging in the kitchen for over a year now. It's a poem about, it ends up with, it never was between you and them anyway. So.
That's good. But the point I was getting to was that I don't see that bitterness to your neighbors. That's awesome. I mean, if they do watch this video, they won't see that either.
Well, yes, that is our, that's one thing that we are, like, if we have bitterness and unforgiveness, that in itself actually can create health problems too.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
that has been scientifically proven.
For sure.
But that's not just the reason. But it's like, you know, for Jesus, you know, he was very clear. We need to forgive.
Mm-hmm.
If we, even though we can honestly say we have been misused and misunderstood, but we need to forgive as we want God to forgive us.
Mm-hmm. And it's hard.
It says, you know, forgive when you stand to pray. Forgive. Basically, I think if we don't forgive, our prayers are not. I mean, sure, God might hear them. I mean, He might answer them, but that's what the Lord's Prayer says. You know, forgive us our debtors as we forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. So it's like we need to forgive, and that is something we try to focus on is forgiveness, and then just move on.
So this is my first cup of Amish coffee.
Is it okay?
Well, it's hot, so I haven't tried it yet. But this is made, well, on your new stove.
On the new stove,
but with a camp coffee maker. That's pretty cool.
Yes.
It's good.
And this has actually been a learning experience for us. Like, you know, sometimes going through something like this can actually, in a sense, it can strengthen us. Like, it really made me search Scripture. Like, once you have to stand for yourself and speak up against what we have been speaking up against, you can't just do that without, you would better know your Scripture or your back, or you're not going to be able to stand.
Well, there's no foundation. I mean, Jesus is the rock.
Yeah.
that's the foundation, and anything else is just, well, it can crumble. And it's like I've told folks already, if we base our way of doing or way of thinking or whatever just on things, or like it's just, well, it can become like Jesus said in the Bible, the house that was built on sand versus the house that was built on rock, right? Okay.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's that, and like you said, if you don't have the foundation on Christ, that's your first issue that you have to fix, right? But then you question everything, and so you want to know the truth. You want to know what the Bible says, and you want to make sure for yourself and not have somebody else tell you that it's in there.
Well, it was just, we were 2 years ago when all this started, we were hearing one way or one thing, and we thought, well, the Bible says this way. So when all this started, we were like, okay, let's dig deep, and we did. I mean, we really, I grew up reading the Bible. My parents we always read like a chapter a day. My father would read a chapter every morning, at the breakfast table. But, after this started, I started reading the Bible.
And you want to. Yeah. So you had mentioned that earlier, like you would always read a chapter a day, but that was more out of tradition.
Yes.
And like, yes, this is a good thing to do. We need to do this, but it wasn't so much as a desire to. And that's kind of how it was for me too.
There was things like we would come across, love worketh no ill to his neighbor, but it didn't really mean anything because that's not necessarily what we practice.
Sure.
So I would say, all in all, this has actually been a good experience for us. I mean, it has actually, I think both of us have actually, if it wouldn't have been for these things, if life would have just coasted on like it had been previously, we would probably, both of us, never have actually studied the scripture. Like, okay, what is true? One thing, a very big misconception is we get told that if you're not at peace with the ministers, then you're not at peace with God. And I had someone told me that he can see by the smile on my face that I'm not at peace with God.
Since we were excommunicated.
Yes.
Somebody told you that.
Yes.
Okay.
And back on that excommunication and shunning, I'm not sure if I explained that properly. So, like, the shunning part is, like, excommunication is where you would, like, remove yourself or remove someone from, being in as a good standing member. I actually don't really have a problem with that. If someone is not coming along with whatever the church wants to do, whatever, I would say let him move on, wish him the Lord's blessings, but let him move on to something else, that where he is satisfied. But the shunning, as they hold it here in Windsor, is totally different from that. Here, like, they are punishing us for not obeying, like being disobedient to them. Well, God, it says, avenge not yourselves, I will repay. We can actually, like, I don't have, and that's where we have that's where I don't even have bitterness that if I do, I try to get rid of it as soon as it tries to fester. Because God takes care of, and there's not one person in this community or anybody that I hope will be lost. I want salvation for everyone.
Amen.
I don't care if they, if they said things in front of church that weren't true, or if they misinterpreted. I don't care. My hope is that they can obtain salvation. That is my deepest desire. And when I put up my signs, like, for God bless you, I was not focusing on, like, trying to win a lot of people. It was just like if one person can be like can look at these signs and it can make them think, God bless you. What is he saying? He is being persecuted. He's not allowed to buy the produce. I mean, he's like totally.
If they know your story and see
Yes.
that, yeah, for sure.
If one person can, if it can make an impact on one person, it is, it is worth doing it.
Yeah.
We're not looking for the, I mean, sure, it would be nice if there was lots of them, but even one person, one soul is worth more than, the whole world and everything in it. And that's where, like, we need to treat, like the Sorghum man, he's a person with, feelings. And, like, for him, we need to show him kindness instead of, like, trying to punish him for, not conforming to. And another thing that
not conforming to their interpretation of a Bible verse
Yes.
or passage.
Yes, which I think is a worldly, and I think they are interpreting it in a worldly way. Like the Amish usually use the verse, "Be not conformed to this world." They use that part of that verse, and then they stop.
But be transformed by the renewing of your mind.
Yeah.
That they don't quote that.
Yeah.
They just
Yep.
and then they will say, since the world has cars, electricity, things like that. So then we shouldn't conform to that.
Yeah.
But I take that as that's talking about our mind, like transforming of our mind.
Well, and to realize who we are in Christ. That's
Exactly.
because our human nature is so contrary to the gospel, and so we have to renew our minds to who we are in Christ, and that He lives through us, right? So, it's reminding ourselves who we belong to. Yeah.
I used to be like self-condemning, like obviously all of us have done wrong, and so that used to like, Satan wants to condemn us, like make us feel bad. Well, I've learned now, especially since I was baptized, I've learned that the condemnation, if we get condemnation from other people or ourselves, we want to condemn ourselves, that is actually not the good spirit. And since I recognize that, it's actually, it makes it easier to define, what spirit it's coming from, if you kind of use that as a rule of thumb as far as the condemnation.
Yeah, it's basically downplaying what Christ has done for us.
Yes. And then another verse that's very means a lot to us is the John 10:10, where it says, "For the thief cometh not but for to steal, to kill, and destroy. I have come that they may have life abundantly."
Have life and life abundantly. Have it abundantly.
Yes. Yeah. And so if you gauge these things like the destruction, like destroy, okay, like try to destroy our, or
Your
destroy
livelihood,
us,
yeah.
Even turning us, like basically saying in front of the church that they're turning us over to Satan for the destruction of the flesh. Paul said that about a man that had his father's wife, and he was unrepentant. Obviously that is...
They take it out of context.
Yes.
Yeah. But that's what they used.
Yes.
For you.
So, but on that after they shunned us, that's something that I could just feel the pressure, the condemnation. I could feel that. Okay, so now they have actually publicly announced that they have turned us over to Satan, and so then my way of combating that is, and making that, just totally immobilizing that condemnation, is actually that that verse. There is no condemnation to them which walk not after the Spirit. No, which walk not after the flesh, but after the Spirit.
I think it's like Romans 8:1.
Yes.
Romans 8:2.
So like, if we walk after the Spirit, and then there is no condemnation. So that was like a big encouragement to me to like recognize that, well, they can say what they want to, they can try to make us look bad, but God knows God knows the situation.
There's no condemnation for those in Christ.
Exactly.
Yeah. Do you have that poem on your wall still that you talked about?
Sure do. I can go get it. Well, or I can just
Oh, I can come over there. So that's your reminder.
Actually, we had this sitting right where our new stove is.
Oh, okay.
Now,
So this just got moved.
Yeah, I should hang it out on the kitchen cabinets now.
Yeah.
So I can see it every day.
That's cool. Well, you got to go give some cows some water, huh?
Yes.
Well, Dora, I appreciate your willingness to share, and I know it'll be good for others to be able to see that side, and to see how you came through that in your spirit today. So that's amazing to see, and I appreciate that.
Well, with God, all things are possible.
Yep.
It's not. I don't.
Not of our own doing.
Mm-hmm, yeah. And in all this, the support that we get, like from our store customers, and
It's been phenomenal.
and it makes me feel very, very small.
Yeah.
And I just think, to God be the glory.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Amen. So with that note, is it okay for me to invite everybody in the world to come visit your store?
Well, we're might have to hire some more help.
But if you're we're in central Missouri on the west side.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're in the area, or if you want to make a trip out, I'm sure they would appreciate it. But it's a really cool store. So
Well, and with no Amish customers anymore, it's kind of, but the way people have been reaching out, it's like very, it's like overwhelming.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Which is really awesome, though.
When I mean overwhelming, I'm talking about the recognition that there are so many people out there that actually care about us, even though.
And you were taught that wasn't. No one would be there for you, right?
Yes,
Is that right?
Yes, that's what.
More or less.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I was. That's what we were taught.
Yeah.
And one more thing about that hauling that sorghum, like the cane, up to the neighbor. So I went to the man that makes the jams and jellies yesterday morning, and I was explaining why I feel like I do about, why shunning is wrong. It's not scriptural, and why that could actually be judged against us possibly if we participate in that and drink of that cup. And so I touched about hauling it over in the dark, and he was like, no, he just said that's not true. I was getting my story from the other side. He's sure that's not true. So, and I was kind of taken aback. Well, maybe I misunderstood. So then this morning I went to the brother that, had been told to haul it up there in the dark. So I actually specifically made a trip with my minivan up there, and I asked him. And he was kind of slow in getting it out, but he did admit that yes, that's what a minister told him. So then I thanked him for it, and I went down to the jam man again, and because Matthew 18 talks about just talk directly with the person. So I did that. I told him that I just wanted to let him know that I did fact check, and it is true. They did tell him to haul it up there in the dark. And of course, I think he was kind of taken aback because here I'm supposed to be the bad guy, and I am, fact checking, and I mean I'm actually not afraid of, the truth, and that's what we need. We need the truth.
The truth will set you free.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep. The verse, just, you guys would probably appreciate this. The verse for me, when I came out of the group that is so heavily in legalism, was John 14:6, that I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father but me. And it was like the scales dropped off my eyes, and I could just see that it's only through Christ. And then nothing else mattered at that point, because it's what Christ has done.
Mm-hmm. And something I sometimes have to think about is like, so, and we actually just read that, I think it was this morning, like when Paul was writing, it's in 1 Corinthians, about not having people call themselves like Paulish, like use his name. And then I have to think of Jacob Ammon. So Jacob Ammon was, a man that started the Amish movement and broke away from the Mennonites. Now Jacob Ammon himself, he actually died while he was shunned.
Okay.
So according to what we get told, there actually wouldn't be any hope for him going by that by that rule stick, because he was still shunned when he died. But so we're calling ourselves Amish, and I mean the name, I don't really have a problem with that, but it's just we had to be very, very careful that, because what Paul was saying, don't call yourself after some man, but that's basically what Amish is. But Jacob Ammon didn't die for my sins. He was not crucified for me. And that's what Paul was saying.
Yeah.
Like, he's not been crucified. It's Jesus Christ.
Yeah, and pointing it to him. Yep. And that's why Paul said that.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's not that I have that big of a problem with it. I mean, it's a way to define it.
Yeah. But it's also like, it's a realization that you've come to at some point that, wait a second, my identity is wrapped up in a man instead of in Christ.
Like the ministers actually told the girl that worked here 11 and a half years, they told her that just my statement, well, I asked a question. I asked, where can they find the word Amish in the Bible? And they said that statement alone is enough to shun me.
Wow. Just asking that.
Yes, just asking where they can find the word Amish in the Bible.
Wow.
So, but there again, I don't say that out of bad feeling. I'm just stating as a fact.
Yeah.
It's just they did tell her that, and of course, then she told us. So
wow.
it's if you really dig into the what's really behind this, it's amazing. Because shunning someone just because they ask a question on where you find the word the
Amish in the Bible,
that is, you don't find backing for that in the scripture.
Yeah. You got a Bible verse to share?
Yeah, I was just, well, sometimes this little book here is I just wrote some of the ones that I found in the Bible that kind of stood out. And that was one of them. The verse that really, that helped me, finalize my decision. Last October, I had, it was during the summer that I said, okay, I am done with, I don't want to be under their, rules and regulations. But it wasn't, I guess God wasn't finished with me yet. Because it wasn't until October that this one weekend, I was, just doing my, whatever I had to do around the house. And this Bible verse started popping into my head. And at first, I didn't give it much thought. And until it just started, it came again and again. And finally, I was like, well, should I be paying attention to this? Is God trying to tell me something that I'm not listening?
It was being brought to your mind.
Yes. And so I started paying attention. And then the whole thing was kind of like a ladder. I was down at the very bottom, and every step was like another rung.
Sure.
I started at the very bottom by this coming into my mind, and then I started listening. Okay, what does it say? And it was the verse that says, okay, I should have found it before this. It's the one that says, whosoever loves father, mother more than me is not worthy of me. Whosoever loves brother or sister more than me is not worthy of me. It's that verse that started popping into my mind.
Mm-hmm.
I started paying attention to what it says. It was kind of like this still small voice after I started, I was kind of a hard learner. I needed to pay attention first. And then it was kind of like this small voice that told me, okay, what does it say? And then if it popped in my mind again, I would be like, okay. And I repeated it slowly because, well, what does it say? I was interested in that.
And what does it mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then after like I said, I guess I was a hard learner. After that, I was like, the still small voice inside me was like, what does it say at the end? And I was like, is not worthy of me. Wow, that's serious.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was kind of like, well, okay, this could be like my earthly father and mother. If I, because in all this, all these months, it was hard on me to think about being excommunicated because of my family, rejecting me.
Mm-hmm.
And just probably not even be getting invited to like my nieces and nephews' weddings. And that was just something that I guess I was holding on to.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with...
Because they're special to me.
Yeah.
I love my family.
Yeah.
I really do. They're special to me. And I was the youngest in my family, so the first of my nieces and nephews that got married were only like 10 plus years younger than me. So my husband and I, would always have part in their weddings, or usually.
Mm-hmm.
And but yes, back to this verse. Yeah, it took me to to different levels. Kind of like I had to it had to sink in.
Mm-hmm.
Before it took me to the next level. I mean,
Sure.
that was just the way it was. And so yeah. After I realized, or after I started thinking, okay, if I cling to these earthly things and am not willing to give my all for Jesus Christ, I was just like, wow, what does it say? He's not worthy of me. And to me, that was serious. Okay, it was after that point that it was just, and like I said, this was over a course of several days. It was kind of like, it took me about a half day to because I was going about my work, I
Sure.
was working and I wasn't thinking about this all the time. And several, after a course of several days, it was like as if I was down here on the ground, and another version of me was above me. And, I could see myself. And I had my arms stretched out. I wanted what was the truth. I wanted to give my all for Jesus. I wanted to be all in. But yet I noticed that I also have my other hand it was like stretched out behind me. And kind of like, well, clinging to what was hard for me to let go.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that took some time.
Wow. So you had a vision, kind of.
Yeah. And yeah, it was just like, I mean, like I said, usually each level usually took me about a half day, you know, to get me to the next rung. And yeah, that was, and it didn't, at first I wasn't quite aware what I might be holding on to. And then just, you know, after, like I said, I don't, you know, God wasn't finished with me yet. He wanted me to realize, I think he wanted me to give my all.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I finally came to the conclusion that, you know, it might be these things, what I'm holding on to, it might be exactly, yeah, like I said, what I'm holding on to. And I need to let go. And I don't remember when, several hours later, actually I think it was the next day. I didn't think much about it, but it was just like I had this vision. And it was like the next day that I was just going about my work, and all of a sudden I discovered that, you know, I have a peace inside of me, and it's a calming peace. It was as if it was indescribable. And since the Bible verse has come to my mind, you know, the verse that Jesus says, the peace that I give passes all understanding. It's just, if I relate this story, it's hard for me to put it in words, because it was a peace that, it's hard to put into words. And I realized all of a sudden it just kind of washed over me. I believe I lost my grip on the arm that I had stretched out behind me. And it was, it was just like this realization washed over me, and I was like, I'm all in.
So that was probably, or could have been, the moment you were saved.
That was from then on. That was, I haven't regretted. Just lately, someone asked me if I have had doubts,
Mm-hmm.
you know, with our decision, and I said not after that weekend in October. I said no. It's like I said, I have an peace that I never ever before thought that I could have, you know, realizing that I'm excommunicated.
Mm-hmm.
Because I just always figured that would really bother me, but it doesn't. I mean, I can go about my work like during the day, here at the house or at the store, and it just doesn't bother me. I am so grateful for that.
That's amazing.
And leading up to that, two women actually talked with you, like Lynn and Amanda.
Oh yeah, that was actually three of them. Lynn, Amanda, and Marion.
And
So those were customers at the store that you were able to have spiritual conversations with.
And everything happened in 1 week's time,
Wow.
and it was not a
That's of God,
coincidence.
isn't it?
It was divine timing.
Yeah.
It was.
And so, can you say how that happened? Like Amanda was first.
Actually, Lynn was first. Yes, I had talked with probably in over an hour.
She had never met her before.
Okay.
They had never met each other before, and but then they met each other that morning, and they knew of each other, but they had never met.
Mm-hmm.
And then they were talking with each other. What was about an hour?
Oh yeah, or over an hour. Yeah, we had a really nice conversation. It was just incredible. And then it was just after we were done, I was just planning to, you know, continue with whatever I was doing at the store. And another lady, we got started talking, and to this day, both of us, I mean, she has become a very, very good friend. She's, she has been an incredible friend since.
It's amazing how God puts people in your lives, isn't it?
Yes.
It's the love, support, and compassion that we, you know, feel from all these. It's just, it's incredible.
So the second person, this was like right end on end. So the first person they had never met. They knew they both knew each other existed, but they had never met. And then after they had discussed about, you know, the saving power of Jesus and things like that, and then they it was like end on end. This other lady, just as they were kind of finishing up, this other lady had this question about the cheese clause. So she asked, and then she asked, and they had never met each other before.
We had actually, I can't remember ever meeting her before.
And so then she asked if she is my wife. And so then she basically gave the same, it was basically a repeat of the first customer.
Okay.
Just a minute conversation.
Yes. It was like a double.
Just a,
reassurance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Marion.
Yeah, that was a day after. Or maybe 2 days after. She used to be horse and buggy Mennonite from over in the Versailles area, 50 miles southeast of here. And we also, you know, that's the way we met, was during, you know, you're through the store, and she and her husband, you know, shop here. And I've had conversations with her before, but this time, she came up to me and started talking about, I forget, you know, it's been a lot, we've had a lot of conversations since. It was about, well, you know, just spiritual things like the Holy Spirit and things like that. And I just turned over to her and I was like, I was feeling, I was so incredulous. And I asked her, I said, do you know that you are the third person this week to tell me the exact, basically the conversation that we're having, you're the third person. And she looked at me and said, some people talk about happenings being a coincidence. She said she doesn't believe in coincidences. She believes things are in, you know, like divine timing. And I said, yes, I think so too. I'm beginning to, you know, yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's awesome. I appreciate, and you'll be in our prayers for sure. So thanks for having me in your home.
And thanks for opening up.
Yes.
That's going to mean a lot.
Well, yeah, if, you know, if, like I said before, everything that has happened, I just say, you know, to God be the glory.
Amen.
I'm just so thankful that, you know, he didn't give up on me. You know, it's just, yeah.
And he won't.
Grateful for that.
Yeah.
Matthew, can you go down and close the gates? Like down by the store. They're still open.
So here's the new ride. These motorized carriages is what I'm used to doing interviews in.
Okay, sure. Well, so you have more practice with those than you do on the horse and buggy.
That's right.
Were you scared?
No.
Have you had a buggy ride before?
Well, you know, I grew up on a farm, and so like animals and stuff, I wasn't scared at all. But I've been on a horse and wagon ride.
Okay.
I've probably been in a horse and buggy once or twice, maybe.
Sure. Okay. Do you want to take the scenic route, or do you want to take the blacktop?
Oh, that's up to you. We can take the scenic route. That's
Okay.
fine. So we're gonna go over and check on some of your cows.
Yes. I'll be moving them home tomorrow. It's just 20 acres. We have 16 cows on there.
You're mooing them home.
Moving them home on this. Oh, moving.
Did you get it?
Yes, moving them. There'll probably be some moving, but I'll put them over on the 80 acres over
Okay.
here.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, the grass is getting pretty tall.
yes. But do you notice a difference? Like, this vehicle is a lot quieter than the other one.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
I don't have as much rattling.
and plus it has air conditioning.
It does. Now, that is something I'm not used to. I mean, unless we go, of course, with someone like a taxi driver or someone. But there's a phone check.
Somebody's at the phone.
Yes, making a phone call. Here's an Amish place. In fact, all the places down this road are Amish except for one.
Okay, so there's a sawmill.
Yes. Yeah, they cut logs into pallet stock.
Oh, okay, to make pellets.
Yes. Here's kind of a bump. I'm going to slow down just a little bit.
So have you found the transition difficult, or?
No, I find it actually, right when we were shunned, I wasn't really I was, of course, I noticed that was a schoolhouse back there. And, of course, here's an Amish home. The pain was so intense, I wasn't really focusing yet. Now I'm seeing the good side.
Sure.
Now I am experiencing the freedom that that Christ gives us. Like, He doesn't put us into bondage.
Mm-hmm.
And so I actually like it.
Yeah. Plus this one has air conditioning.
Yes, and of course it'll have a heater through the winter.
Yep.
Now the buggies don't.
Yeah.
You just pile the blankets on, and sometimes you're shivering quite a bit. That one's not very old yet.
Yeah.
But it looks healthy. And this one is a place that he does horseshoeing, and has got a horse stable. And this
So
is
a lot of them are on this road.
yes. Mm-hmm. Well, this portion of the community, there's about 80 families in the community.
Okay.
He's got a lot of horses.
He has a lot of horses.
Now this one's got a lot of sheep.
It's
out
beautiful out here. Really is.
Here. Yes, we like this area. We've thought about moving away, like a year or two ago, we were, contemplating about that.
Yeah.
But we like it so well. Like, we like the countryside. It's not just all grain crops. I mean, there's a lot of just pasture land.
Mm-hmm.
and
But trees too. Lots of trees to kind of break it up.
Yes, and it's rolling.
Yeah.
So we really like this area.
I thought that was a car we just met, but it had
okay.
headlights.
Yes, it was a buggy with the battery-powered lights. I'll take a left here.
Another phone booth.
Yeah, looks like both phone shacks are occupied. Now, speed limit 35. I never had to watch that with my other rig because, he couldn't go that fast. So now I have to watch the speed limit.
Yeah.
That's my cousin back there. He makes mini barns.
Okay.
Like up here on the right, that's an Amish setting back in there. So yeah, there's lots of Amish in this neighborhood. They've got a processing place back there where they can process deer during the season. God has been good.
Yeah.
It almost seems like the more we bless other people, the more He blesses us.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually what it seems like. that's not why we want to do it, obviously. I mean, we don't want to just do it for carnal reasons.
Yeah.
No, obviously not. You can just leave it open.
Okay.
Did I scare you there?
Nope.
I took my foot off the brake just a little bit.
I should probably be scared of an Amishman driving.
I'm kind of new at it yet. But I did pass I actually passed the first test, the first time, and then the second one, like the real one to get the driver's
First
license.
time.
Yeah, so I passed them both first time.
All right.
Got 16 cows there, and I'm going to guess they're ready for water. I think we need to go this way. Either. The old-fashioned style that we let it down, and then I'll put some grease like on all the joints to where it doesn't wear out so soon. It doesn't have like the automatic greasing or anything like that. So you go along and grease all these joints, and so it doesn't make as loud. And then sometimes, of course, the horses want to go before you're ready, but we just kind of keep an eye on the horses.
So last night we were finishing up filming and the camera died, and so we just wanted to kind of finish up our time here with Leonard and Dora and visit with him just a little bit more before we head out. But last night I was probably up well past midnight just thinking about what God has done in your life and the opportunity to share your story with others. And I was just so thankful to be able to do that. Because like we said last night, it's nothing that we do. This is all God's work and guiding us and pointing us. I appreciate you showing how you used to mow. And what's the plan for the future? Do you plan on keeping all your horses, or you got a mower, so obviously for mowing you got that covered, but...
Mm-hmm. Well, it's one of those things I really actually enjoy using the horses. I started driving a team when I was 12 years old, and it's something I always enjoyed.
Yeah.
And we've actually considered selling most of our horses. We might keep a few around just for the opportunity to,
go for a buggy ride.
Yes, maybe just for the children, or if there's friends or someone that wants to go for a ride.
Sure.
Now, of course, like a team of horses like this, they do eat a lot of grass, and which is fine. But I have actually considered selling them.
Yeah.
Just because I I think I'll have other ways to do my mowing.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and with you guys getting the skid loader, that will help out a lot too.
Like if we're hauling firewood,
Yeah.
out of the woods. I think that will be a big improvement.
Yeah, for sure.
Back when I was a boy, I actually had I had the community's the bench wagon where they would have all the benches, like to
for
have
the
church
services?
in the different houses. I was driving the neighbor's team. It was a team of white horses, and I enjoyed doing it. I wasn't afraid at all. But then someone came along with a motorcycle, and he had it revved up really good. And as we met each other on the road, my horses took off, and
So you couldn't stop him?
well, no, I couldn't. I was probably 13 at the time, and they just kind of took off into the ditch, and it was muddy. But they pulled the wagon full of benches. They pulled that across. It was kind of catty corner across the field, through the wet field, and it pulled kind of hard. But they made it through to the other side. There was no fences, and then the motorcycle guy, he actually saw what happened, so he took a quick left turn and he stopped up ahead, and that's how they stopped. Then I came up and got back on and took off again.
Yeah.
So everything turned out good. There was no steep ditches or anything,
Yeah.
but that was kind of my first experience as far as horses can be. They're fun to drive.
Yeah.
But they can also you kind of need to keep an eye on them.
Yeah, for sure. The store is busy this morning.
Yes, and that's something that we've been blessed with a lot of good customers.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, the Amish people are forbidden to shop at our store anymore, but we've got a lot of outside customers, to keep us going.
Yeah.
And that support us, and so yeah, it's been it's been a challenge, but it's still, we're still here and going strong.
Yeah.
So yes, I'm kind of getting used to like this shirt was previously not allowed because it's got some like a purple type of a color, and that was not allowed like in this community.
It's too bright of a color, huh?
Well, it's the color of the color, so it's like got a purple shade.
Okay.
And so anything purple is forbidden.
Okay.
So since it's, kind of a purple type, I mean, it's a lavender, obviously, but and then we also have, like, I'm used to wearing suspenders.
Mm-hmm.
I've been wearing suspenders all these years. Now at Arthur, Illinois, when the boys become 16, and then they can discontinue the suspenders.
Okay.
And they can just, go without. But up until then they usually do wear the suspenders. So when we moved, when I was 14, obviously I was looking forward to that, to just, not have to wear suspenders. And then since we moved before that, and then so I've been wearing these suspenders, and then this morning I decided, well, I'm going to be wearing a shirt, that's that I wouldn't have wore before, that I will just go ahead and remove the suspenders, kind of see how that feels.
Yeah.
And it actually feels like freedom. I mean, it's just kind of more loose and just kind of it's not as restricting, and so I kind of enjoy it.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, that's the little things that we have no idea about, right?
Sure.
Things that you don't think about.
Yes. So.
Yeah, that's really cool. All right, what's their names?
This one, her name is Nakota, and now the names aren't exactly the same because obviously, they weren't always mates. We've had them together probably 4 years, but before that they were her name is Belle.
Okay.
So we've got Belle, and I think she's like 15 or 16, and then Nakota here, I think she's like probably, I think she's 8 or 9.
Okay.
I've raised several colts from her. but I wouldn't want to be selling them, except it's just that I don't really need a team of horses enough to really really need them around
Anymore, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So that's kind of one of those things where you kind of have to make some choices. Is it, do I need them around, or do I just, move them on, let someone else enjoy them?
Mm-hmm. So, brother, I appreciate your time. It's been wonderful couple days that we've been here to get to know you, and you've been an encouragement to me in the fact that God is still working. And, he's been working on you for several years, but it's amazing to see. So I appreciate your time, and it's been great.
Yeah, I appreciate your time too. It's been interesting visiting with you. And,
I'm sure it's been a little bit foreign to have a camera in your face for a while, but
it's been, that's a change of scenery. I'm usually inside the store, so this is just a different,
it's good.
Yeah.
And it's been a beautiful couple days, so we got it wrapped up before it starts raining. So we'll see you guys down the road. All right, just a few final thoughts. I don't have a lot of words, but I'm just thankful to hear their story and what God has done in their lives. They ask for prayers for discernment as they continue on in kind of this transition period in their life. So if you're in the area in Missouri, stop by their store. It's a great store. So stop by and support them and say hi.